Once she was allowed to start being and living as her authentic self, she became so much happier. She now has more friends than she ever has had. She's doing so well. And it's really impossible to watch your child transform in that way and not get over yourself and over your grief.
You're listening to the Mindful Mama podcast. Today, we're talking about when your child is trans with Paria Hassouri. Welcome to the Mindful Mama podcast, now with over 1 million downloads. Here, it's about becoming less irritable and more joyful parent. At Mindful Mama, we know that you cannot give what you do not have, and when you have calm and peace within, then you can give it to your children. I'm your host, Hunter Clarke-FIELDS, Mindful Mama mentor. I help smart, thoughtful parents stay calm so they can have strong, connected relationships with their children. I've been practicing mindfulness for over 20 years. I'm the creator of Mindful Parenting, and I'm the author of Raising Good Humans, a mindful guide to breaking the cycle of reactive parenting and raising kind, confident kids. Welcome back, my friend. I am so glad you are here. In just a moment, I'm going to be talking to Paria Hassouri, a mother of 3, pediatrician, writer, and trans activist in Los Angeles, about her book, Found in Transition, A Mother's Evolution During Her Child's Gender Change. This is her debut book, and this is a really powerful book. I've already passed it on to friends in my neighborhood who could benefit from this, and I think you're going to really find this conversation really eye-opening. You know, what is it like when your child tells you they are trans? You know, this can be a scary scenario for a parent. And this happened to Paria when her then son came out as a girl at 13 years old. And so you're going to get to find out what it's like parenting a transgender teen. And you're going to hear about how our children really need us to trust and support them when they come out as trans, and how as a mom she went through denial, anger, and grief at this huge change, and how, you know, thinking about like gender identity in general, right? Like how girls are often celebrated for being strong, but we also need to celebrate boys for being soft. So we talk about how parents of younger kids can help in this area. It was a really powerful conversation. You'll hear that gets emotional sometimes, and I think that you'll find a lot in here to learn from, whether this is all new to you or whether this is something that you are really versed in. So I can't wait for you to dive into this conversation. I'm really proud to have her on the podcast. And before we dive in, I just want to let you know that we are going to run one round of the Mindful Parenting Teacher Training next year, and we are scheduling now. It actually will start in December. And to apply for a spot, you can go to mindfulparentingcourse.com/teach. And I need to let you know that right now I'm doing very small groups to teach others to teach mindful parenting in your local community. And we only accept 50% of the applicants, and we only have less than 6 spots. So if you are interested, go to mindfulparentingcourse.com/teach, and you'll see a button to be able to schedule a call with me. And if we determine that it's a right fit for you, we'll send you a link to fill out the application. The deadline now is December 18th, 2020. So I don't know if those spots will fill up before then or not, but go check it out. If you want to become a teacher in your local community of mindful parenting, and the teacher trainers will become part of how we expand the coaching in the mindful parenting course itself. So we'll be hiring our teacher trainers as well. If you are interested in this, if you're passionate about mindful parenting, go to mindfulparentingcourse.com/teach to learn more. Okay. I think that's all we have to discuss. I know there's so many events in the world we could talk about in this intro and outro, but we're not going to leave it to that. Let it be said that it is November 2020. Oh my goodness, 2020. What a year. What a year. But I think that you'll find that this conversation is a ray of light and a ray of awakening and awareness. And I hope that nourishes you as you listen. So Now, on to this conversation with Paria Hassouri. Paria, thank you so much for coming on the Mindful Mama podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Well, you have a fascinating story. And so now I just have to say that now I'm a parent of a teen. I have a 13-year-old. And of course I've been in the world and seeing all the revolution of trans people claiming their rights and all of this stuff and this awakening, I think, that is kind of generally happening. Mm-hmm. And it's been really interesting for me. I think personally, I just want to frame this as like, it's been interesting for me to watch my own reactions to it. And they're not all like awesome, and I am like a pretty like really open-minded, accepting person, like in general, like that's generally how I see myself. And that's what I get reflected back to me anyway. But it's been interesting to watch these habits of reaction that are just like internal, that just arise right through my conditioning in my culture to various things. And it seems like your book about your daughter, Found in Transition, you discovered some of these own responses in yourself too, to this, to discovering this about your daughter. So maybe you can like just take us back to the sort of the start of the story and what happened.
So I have 3 children, and in May of 2017, my middle child, who was 13 and a half at that point, came out as transgender to us. She was born designated male and told us that she is a girl and that she wants to start dressing as a girl and going to school eventually as a girl and start hormone therapy. And when she told us that at 13 and a half, my husband and I were completely blindsided by it. We didn't think that she had any signs at all in her childhood of being trans or possibly having any gender dysphoria or any gender identity issue. And when she sat on the couch at 13 and a half and told us she's a girl, she looked 100% like what you would think of as your typical teenage boy in, shorts and a t-shirt with a crop of messy hair. And, throughout her childhood, she had never shown an interest in what we associate with, girl things. So, for example, she had never wanted to grow out her hair or wear skirts or dresses or have a younger daughter. She never really had an interest in, so girl toys, whatever that means, now I realize toys don't really have gender, but, were all over our house, whether it was like, dolls and princesses and tea sets and all of that, and she never had any interest in her sister's toys. She never resisted the clothes that I bought her. She never said statements like, I don't want to be a boy, or I'm a girl, or I don't like my penis, or whatever number of things you could think of that may indicate some gender issue in a child, she didn't have.
And so when she came, well, you're a pediatrician too.
Yes.
So yes. You're fairly versed in what happens with little kids and what happens, throughout childhood and developmental stages and things like that. So you thought you were, I guess.
Right. I thought I was. Apparently, I was not. So I think, most people have this impression that all trans people know that they're trans or have some gender dysphoria that exhibits itself starting in early childhood, as early as 3, 4, 5, 6. And that's what I thought. And so when she told us, we didn't believe her at all, because we thought there's no way this is possible. And this has to be some sort of teenage confusion, attention getting, depression, who knows what phase. And that's actually not the case at all. I subsequently learned that about half of trans people don't really come into kind of their gender identity, and gender dysphoria doesn't emerge until they start puberty or later, which was the case with her. She never really felt that she was, in the wrong body, or that she might be a girl, or that, any of these things were an issue until her body started going through puberty. And once her body started going through puberty is when she started to have a lot of distress, and her body started to feel like foreign and not like the body she knew or was comfortable with. And before that, she had not felt that before.
You mentioned the word or the term gender dysphoria. Can you just explain what that is?
I think, it's basically distress over the gender that one is living in. So if you were, designated, male, and you're living as a boy, having distress about that gender identity. So, yeah.
All right. So, and it's interesting because like later in the book, you talk about you're a little hard on yourself about how you didn't handle your daughter's coming out as trans skillfully, how you shot her down, and you're disappointed in yourself for this. But it's interesting to kind of, for me to look and see, well, it's across the spectrum of reactions, it seemed like you actually had probably like a pretty, of all the reactions that trans youth are having from their parents, is probably definitely more on the positive end of the spectrum. Cause I know that there's a lot of like outright rejection, but I'd love for you to talk to us about how you did react, and why were you so disappointed in it?
So how I reacted was, when she basically sat and gave us a dissertation on being trans all in one sitting. And I consider myself a very open, liberal, mother who had always told my kids that they could tell me anything and that they could come to me with anything. And, when she came to me with the biggest thing that she had to tell me, I feel like I immediately shut her down. And my reaction was, there's no way that I said, there's no way that you're transgender. I've known you your whole life. I know you better than you know yourself. And I think you're just, depressed or confused, or I don't know what's going on with you, but I will get you a therapist who's trained in this, to help you sort out what is going on. But there is no way that we're going to allow you to be trans or allow you to transition. And there's no way that you are going to start medication or do anything like that until you're 18 years old and an adult. So, I didn't kick her out of my house or, and I did immediately look for a therapist for her, but she sat and told me who she is. And I said, no, that's not who you are. I know you better than you know yourself. And there's no way I'm going to let you do this. Mm-hmm. And if you, read about trans people's experience and talk to trans people, the moment they come out to their parents is a huge part of their life, and a really a sentinel moment, and I feel like while she hadn't had signs that I would consider, distress over gender in her childhood, she was often depressed, and nobody could really figure out why she was depressed. She did have difficulty making good friends. She had, other things. It just there was never any clue that the underlying issue with those other things may have a gender base. But because she would have these periods of depression for no reason. We had already been through multiple, therapists, and particularly with her, I had many conversations about I think there's something going on with you and I don't know what it is, and whatever it is, you can tell me. So when she did tell me, I immediately shut her down. So I think that's part of why, I feel incredible guilt about it. I think the other part that I'm not sure if it gets conveyed as much in the book or not, but because I was completely uninformed and ignorant on this topic, we had about a 6 to 9 month delay in starting the process of getting her appropriate care and blocking her puberty and going from there. And so I think there's a difference between, a child who comes out during puberty is an incredibly critical time. So, when an adult comes out to their parent, or a 17 or 18-year-old or 20-year-old, and their body has gone through puberty and changed all that it's going to change, and it takes 6 to 9 months for their parents to get on board, that doesn't make as big of a difference physically and medically. And when a child that's 6 or 7 or 8 comes out to their parent, and it takes their parent a year to get on board, and their body hasn't started, puberty yet, the ramifications of denial and delay before puberty and, after puberty, early adulthood, are all sort of social ramifications. But during puberty, every day of delay equals your body further masculinizing or feminizing in a direction that causes you more distress, and in a direction that, should you choose to medically transition, is going to require more undoing, and by undoing, I mean, for example, her face in that 6 to 9 month, her face rapidly grew facial hair, which we have had to now, which really causes her a lot of distress. And she's had over 30 sessions of uncomfortable, painful electrolysis to try to get rid of it, and it's not done. And this is something she wants to do. Obviously, it's not like I said, "Oh, you need to get electrolysis," So I think, I think that's the thing, is that so many of these kids puberty is when it becomes kind of clear for them, or when they start to, this mismatch. If it wasn't there before, they really start to hit it and feel it. And puberty is when, that they may come out to their parents. And because they're in puberty and because they're teenagers, is exactly why we don't believe them. We're just like, oh, this is, this is just another thing, for you. This is just another trend. This is just whatever, another phase. And so there's a delay, and but it's like the worst time to have a delay. I think that's a lot of, my guilt.
Stay tuned for more Mindful Mama podcast right after this break. So the other night we had a campfire and a celebration party. All my neighbors came in, everyone wore masks, because that is what we need to do to help keep ourselves safe and be able to meet that incredibly important need of being in contact with each other, that incredibly important social need. We need to wear the face masks, right? We all got to wear them. And for me personally, I didn't like them at first. Everyone I tried was uncomfortable. But I'm so happy I found a couple months back Braddock face masks. And now they are some of the only face masks that me and my family wear. What I like about the Braddock face mask is that, unlike other face masks, they actually feel really good. They're soft and comfortable for hours and hours. And they do this by using premium upcycled fabrics that are super soft and breathable. Plus, they have moisture wicking technology to keep your face nice and cool, which is so important. Even more, they're machine washable, and they honestly do hold up after dozens and dozens of washes. I love that Braddock is a family-owned company making those masks right in Los Angeles, right in the United States. And they use these upcycled fabrics, and those are brand new existing fabrics that they repurpose for their masks, reducing waste and materials. And of course, less waste equals less harm to the environment. So they're super soft. And for every purchase using the code, the guys at Braddock are donating masks to those in need. Braddock has already donated thousands of masks to nurses and healthcare workers and first responders across the country. It's a win-win-win with these great face masks. Now, for a limited time, when you go to BraddockUSA.com, you'll see that they already have great prices, but for a limited time, we're going to get you an additional 25% off with the promo code HUNTER on your first purchase. That's 25% off your entire order for a limited time with the promo code HUNTER at BraddockUSA.com, BraddockUSA.com. So go to BraddockUSA.com, use the promo code HUNTER, and I promise you, you're really going to love these masks. Go check them out, get some, and then from all of us, let's beat this and move on to better days. Yeah, I mean, that's interesting like that. I mean, it makes a lot of sense that this delay makes a huge difference, but this is a huge life change that you don't want to just go rushing into. I mean, I guess,
Right.
it's curious, as an outsider to this issue, it's like, yeah, I mean, is there a chance, what are the chances that, I mean, I guess we don't know, right? What are the chances that people say, I'm trans, but then they're actually maybe gay, right? And that is a confusing time. And then what
Right.
happens if they adjust their body and they can't have children or something like that? I mean, I think those are really real
Right.
fears, right? That
Yeah.
that are really understandable. And for most of human existence, this option to just, to change your body didn't exist. So this is like a kind of a very new um, a new dilemma, or in some ways. I mean, not that I'm not trying to
Right.
I'm not trying to minimize it, but I guess I
Right.
would say, like, I don't think you should necessarily minimize your fear and your caution. I think those
Right.
are also wise and loving reactions as well.
Right. I agree. I agree with that. These are really, really difficult decisions to make. Which it's clearly in my, in my book how much I struggled with making these decisions and talking to other parents how difficult these decisions are. But I think getting. I think some of the things are for a lot of parents there's a delay in getting into therapy, getting into, even mentioning it to their pediatrician, for example, or, there are things that you can do safely, sort of immediately,
Mm.
that aren't going to have long-term consequences. And, so getting with the appropriate therapist and mentioning it to your pediatrician so that they can refer you to somebody who is a gender specialist, and considering putting a pause on puberty, which is done through puberty blockers. And so puberty blockers have been used for over, I think, since over 30, 40 years now, completely safely for other reasons, like kids who go through, early puberty. And puberty
Mm.
blockers are completely safe and completely reversible. Um, and so you can put a pause on puberty while you are, getting the right, therapists and care to sort of help figure this out, so that the teen's body is not further masculinizing or feminizing, in the wrong direction, while you guys try to, figure this out. But I think that is one thing that people don't know and are, worried about and scared of. So now starting cross hormones or hormone therapy does have some irreversible effects, but putting a pause on puberty is
Mm.
completely safe and reversible. And that can really make a big impact and relieve the distress for a lot of teens significantly, and buy you you can very safely pause puberty for 2 years to sort of buy time to figure out, what's going on. And obviously we all go through puberty, at different times. Some people start at 9, some people 11, some, 13, so you can very safely pause it while you figure that out. And I think then getting back to your other question of what if they do change their mind or this isn't, the right thing for them. The data we have so far is that once a child has started puberty and says they're trans and believes that they are trans, of the kids who start, medical transition, the rate of who then stop or change their mind has been a max of 2 to 3%. So 97, 98%, if once they've started puberty, if they say they're trans, they really are trans. So, I think, and, I'm fortunate we live in Los Angeles, and the doctor that we took her to had been treating trans kids for over 20 years. So he had a lot of experience with this, and, I could rely on his experience and, him, feeling certain that this was the right decision, for her, and sort of hand over some of the burden of decision making over to her doctor. But yeah, these are all legitimate fears. I just think, don't not act, do something, just get help from the right people. And if you need to just pause something, pause it so that you do have the time to figure it out and make the right decisions.
Yeah, you mentioned in the book that, parents come all the time to the pediatrician's office and say, can we get ADHD drugs and things like that for our kids? And those have huge, big side effects, but they're actually much more, maybe in some ways more dangerous than the puberty blockers that you're mentioning, but we kind of take them for granted because they're so familiar now.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. There's so many kids who are on stimulants or antidepressant and anti-anxiety medications. Obviously, all of those are okay and life-saving for the kids who need them, and quality of life improving for the kids who need them. But all of those medications have side effects as well. And we are much quicker to put kids on, those medications than on, puberty blockers, which are completely reversible and safe.
So interesting. We've been talking about a lot about the, I guess this is sort of like the technical side of this and things like that. But imagine for you, and reading your book is a great book. So for instance, the other day, my 13-year-old was being very 13 and ornery, and I had just like a good cry, like grieving this like loving little girl that I used to just want to hang out with me and be with me, and just like grieving that transition from girlhood into teen. Now, I can't even imagine the grief process for you of losing in some ways your son, gaining now this daughter. And how did you deal with that as you went through?
Yeah, I think it was the most incredible grief I've ever felt. I guess I have been fortunate that I haven't had a lot of terrible things happen in my life, yet, and hopefully that won't change. But I've never experienced grief the way I experienced it once I moved on from denial and anger to realizing that this was probably true and that this was probably happening. I experienced grief unlike anything I've ever experienced before. And, I think it took a long time, but I had to get to the place of realizing that I wasn't losing anything. It takes a while to get to the point where you see that you really haven't lost your child, that your child is the same person that they've always been. It's just that they have a different gender than what you thought. And it's, but yeah, we all, from the moment our kids are born, we sort of project into their future and, imagine their future and, have these, visions and hopes and, for them. And, I think a lot of the grief too, when you have a trans child, is because you have a lot of fear for them, and so, I had a lot of fear of, is this gonna, limit her life? Is she gonna be bullied? Is she gonna not be able to get as good of a job? Is she gonna have a harder time meeting somebody if she wants to have a partner, in life? Will she have a harder time being a parent if she wants to be a parent, which she's always been very clear that she wants to have children. So a lot of the grief is, is all of this. And for that part that was sort of fear-based about her future being limited, that I really just had to work on my own mindset, and realize that this did not in any way have to be something that limits her future. And that if I had the attitude that this was going to limit her future, then it certainly would, and I had to step up and be, optimistic for her and tell her that, rather than this limiting her, she could use it to, sort of open doors for her, and be a trailblazer and, make a difference in the world. And I think once I changed my attitude about that, really things started to change for her as well. And she started to become so much happier. And I think also once she was allowed to, start living as her authentic self, I mentioned that she had periods of, depression and loneliness. So once she was allowed to start being and living as her authentic self, she became so much happier. She now has more friends than she ever has had. She's doing so well. And it's really impossible to watch your child transform in that way and not get over yourself and over your grief. So I think it's like a process, the grief, just like any other grief, or people have in their life. You just you go through the phases of it. But I think it would have been impossible to watch her be this much happier and thriving now and not get over my feelings of what I thought I lost.
Stay tuned for more Mindful Mama podcast right after this break. We are supported by Orgain. Now listen, I have to tell you, I'm constantly looking for the best clean nutrition to help me and my family stay healthy, active, and feeling our best in this crazy world. Well, I am so happy I found Orgain. It is an absolute game changer. Orgain has all kinds of organic products to fit your active lifestyle: nutrition shakes, protein powders, meal powders, bars, and even almond milk. Orgain products are food-based and full of organic vitamins and materials that taste delicious and provide maximum nutrition. We have been so happy with the Orgain Kids protein bar, the O bar as we've been calling it. My daughter is vegetarian and tends to not want to eat the tofu and the beans and the different things. We can make it for her sometimes, but she loves the Orgain O bars, and I feel really good because she is getting some good quality protein, which I know that she really needs, and it's easy and super delicious. Orgain promises to never use unnecessarily fillers like artificial ingredients, preservatives, or GMOs. They're all about good, clean nutrition. Plus, it ships Orgain ships right to your door. You can even set up recurring deliveries to get your favorite products delivered for free. Thanks to Orgain, I finally found the best clean products to help me keep healthy and maximize my family's nutrition. And right now, you can save 20% off your first order. Plus, when you subscribe, you can save even more. So go to tryorgain.com/hunter50. That's tryorgain.com/hunter50 for 20% off your first order plus an extra savings when you subscribe. Tryorgain.com/hunter50. Yeah, that's beautiful that you got to have this sort of joy at the end of it. Is it okay if I read some of your words back to you? Because I thought this was kind of neat.
Yeah.
You were talking to your husband and you said, I'm never going to know what an adult version of Aiden, is that how you said her old name?
But yeah.
Aiden, okay. Would have been like, I just can't seem to get over that. And he said, you do know an adult version of Aiden would have been either a depressed and isolated person or dead. But the real adult version of Aiden is Ava, which I hope I'm pronouncing that right too. And she will be happy and thriving and surrounded by friends. And obviously he was right. That's really beautiful.
Yeah. And I mean, it's true. You know, she was lonely for so, I mean, it wasn't going to be sustainable for her to stay, presenting as a boy. I mean, it just wasn't. I think this adult vision I had of this adult son, it just wouldn't have happened. That wouldn't have happened. She would have been a lonely, unhappy man. She wouldn't have been, this, thriving adult male sitting at my Thanksgiving table with, his kids and whatever I wanted, but I have no doubt just seeing her now that the adult version of Ava will be happy and thriving and doing well. And I used to worry that she, what if she wouldn't find like a partner or somebody, if that's what she wants in life. I mean, I don't worry about that at all anymore. I think a lot of not worrying about those things is that I got involved with a community of other parents raising trans kids. And, you sort of fear what you don't know and what you don't have, and once you get involved with other parents who have trans kids and young adults and surround yourself with a community like that, all those fears go away.
Well, you mentioned earlier, you hope that she'll be sort of trailblazing and positive, but this is what you're doing. You're modeling how to be trailblazing and positive by writing this book and embracing, which is so cool. So she has a good female role model in that respect.
Thank you. I hope so. I mean, I think in a sense, the book was almost like a big apology, to her for, for getting it wrong initially, and, writing it, hoping that another parent will, even if one parent reads our story and when their kid comes out, doesn't, immediately dismiss their kid. And then, we've sort of done our job in telling our story. So, yeah, thank you.
Does this whole experience change the way you think about, if you could go back and parent your kids differently now that when they were little, or what does it make you think about how maybe you would have, if you could change things when they were little kids?
Yeah, I think, we think that we raise our kids without imposing gender on them, but that's so absolutely not true. I think I would go back and really, I never forced her to do anything she didn't want to do. It's not like I ever forced her into a sport or forced her into, clothing that she didn't want. But I think that do impose gender on our children in very subtle ways that we're not, even not aware of at all. And so I think, for example, when I had my oldest son, and then I had Ava, and our house was filled with like cars and trains and superheroes. And so that's what she played with. I mean, that was what was in our house, and then when I had my daughter, I bought, a little house and the tea sets and all of, these things, I mean, even just right now, if I'm buying a gift for my niece, I try to buy gender neutral gifts, and so now if my niece asks me for a doll, I'm going to buy her a doll. But if my niece asks me for a puzzle, I'm not going to buy her like a pink princess puzzle. I'm just going to buy her a puzzle of the world or farm animals or whatever, so when I can take gender out of something, I do. Even I think, so I think I'm just a lot more aware of, I remember there was one time before she came out that I bought a chalkboard for my youngest to just put in her room. And the chalkboard, I don't even know what you call the shape, but it wasn't, it had like a swirly, shape to it, the chalkboard. And then, Ava, who, this was still when she was presenting his boy, saw the chalkboard and said, "Oh, I want a chalkboard for my room." And I bought her like a rectangle chalkboard. Like, why did I buy Shada like this swirly chalkboard and a rectangle chalkboard for Ava? I mean, like gender, we do things, we don't even realize the things that we do, and so what is that telling? And at that time, Ava was 11 or 12. So it was right when her body was starting to change. So, you're telling her, you get this sort of chalkboard, there's no like creativity or femininity or whatever you want to call it is not appropriate for your room. I mean, I mean, these are just such subtle little things that we do that we don't even realize we're doing. But now I'm so hyper aware of the things I did do and what I, do. So, and I would just like to say, please, people, don't stop the gender reveal parties. I mean, celebrate having a baby, but please stop the gender reveal parties.
Yeah, aside from the fires they are literally lighting in the world. It really does train. It's interesting. I thought it was so interesting because when I had my first daughter, who's 13 now, that kind of thing didn't exist, and we waited to find out her sex, and so I asked everyone to find me gender neutral clothing because that's always been really important to me. I really hate the boxes that people are put in for masculinity and femininity and gender, particularly as a girl. I remember really hating pink as a girl and just being like, stop shoving your pink down my throat. I don't want it, And and so what do you see as like sort of the detriment to those gender reveal parties?
Well, it's not really a gender reveal. It's a genitalia reveal party, right? So, because we now know that genitals and gender are two different things. Most of them, they are so very, very gendered, the boy gender reveal party is all like, trucks and football and blue, and the girl gender reveal party is, super pink and princess. If you look at pictures of them, they're just, it's like, just have, and I don't know if people are having, some people are doing the gender reveal party and then they're having, their baby shower, so it's like, just go back to just having a baby shower, but it's that the gender reveal parties, you're already imposing so much predetermined gender, on the child, which even if your child is cisgender, I mean, for most people, their child is cisgender. So, but you're already just imposing kind of roles and definitions and how your kid should be as a boy or a girl on them before they're even born,
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I guess, do you see it as kind of like a backlash against these people pushing back against these norms, like them trying to be, reestablished from an even earlier point?
I don't think that's what's happening. I think people are really just excited and they're trying to have a party. And I just think when you don't really, I don't think people are aware of the sort of detrimental parts of it when they're doing it. I do really think they are just trying to actually celebrate that they're having a boy or a girl, and but it's just
Now,
giving the wrong message.
So you must look at like gender and gender roles really differently, I'm sure, now. And I just wonder, like, does it change the way you look at masculinity and femininity in general? And like, if you could sort of like wave a magic wand and make childhood safe for all kids, what would be the changes that you would see in an ideal world around the way we approach gender?
Yeah, I mean, I think we would really offer all kids the same choices, the same activities, the same toys. We would get rid of statements like, "Oh, boys don't do this," or "Girls don't, do this." Mm-hmm. I mean, I think we are a lot more comfortable with girls doing certain things in childhood that we consider, more, boy activities. We put our girls in, soccer, and if they're a tomboy, we, encourage that, and we consider that, strong. But we really, really don't allow boys to be, soft and sensitive and express femininity. And, how many parents are putting their 4-year-old girls in ballet versus putting their 4-year-old boys in ballet? Just, so, I mean, I myself never signed up my first two for ballet. And when my youngest was 4 years old, I put her in her first ballet class. There's nothing wrong with putting her in a ballet class at 4 years old, but why didn't I do that for, my oldest, for example? So I think, I think really trying to provide the same sort of opportunity, activity, have the same mentality, the attitude, for all kids. And, the other thing that really, I think schools, in schools, what's really hard for a lot of kids is, they'll have, okay, like, all right, so all the boys are going to line up and use the water fountain first, and then all the girls are going to line up and use the water fountain. Or, a lot of things like this. And for that kid who early on is aware of having a gender, identity issue or dysphoria, that is incredibly distressing, So, I mean, why do we do this in school? Like, boys line up here, girls line up here. I mean, we do it we separate boys and girls in so many ways, in so many different places. And we really just need to become aware of how much we're doing that and try our best not to do it.
Stay tuned for more Mindful Mama podcast right after this break. We are supported by HelloFresh. HelloFresh offers convenient, no contact delivery to your doorstep for easy home cooking with the family. And they send recipe and food that is easy to follow with simple steps and pictures to guide you along the way. HelloFresh is the first global carbon neutral meal kit company, which is so cool. And actually, by skipping the grocery store and using HelloFresh, you're reducing your food waste by at least 25%. HelloFresh delivers pre-portioned ingredients so you're not overbuying, which is a burden on the planet and your wallet. And the packaging HelloFresh uses to ship your food is almost entirely made from already recycled content. And since they offset their operations, travel, shipping emissions, HelloFresh's carbon footprint is 25% lower than store-bought meals, which is so cool. And it's delicious and nutritious and super convenient. We are so excited to continue making our HelloFresh meals. My 13-year-old now has to make meal once a week, and she is so excited to make the Old Bay buttered up chicken. And I can tell you, these meals are so delicious and so easy to make. It really makes it fun, it makes it joyful, and it makes it so that we can stop that mental load of what do we make? And she can really, really help because it is so easy and so convenient and super delicious. Go to hellofresh.com/90hunter and use the code 90hunter to get $90 off, including free shipping. That's hellofresh.com/90hunter and use the code 90hunter to get $90 off, including free shipping. Okay, just a quick voice memo update on the Old Bay buttered up chicken. We cooked it tonight, or actually Maggie cooked it tonight, my 13-year-old. And what did you guys think?
It was yummy.
It was...
Yeah, it's really good.
It was so good. It was like eating a restaurant meal at home.
Yeah.
I was really impressed. Honestly, super, super impressed. I'm psyched about it. What do you think?
Yeah, it's really good. Like something from a restaurant.
Yeah.
We can just easily say this half of the class, okay, these 2 rows go to the water fountain. Now these 2 rows go to the water fountain. And if you did that instead of boys, you go first and then girls, or vice versa, for that one kid who's in that class, who does have a gender issue, that would make all the difference.
Make all the difference. I went to a school, my middle school was kind of an old school middle school, and it had a big carved in stone signs above the 2 entrances on either side of the school when you went in from the playground. One said boys and one said girls. I was like, okay. Actually, I don't think we used it at that point then. But yeah, it's like this kind of separating of each other, so I mean, now for people who feel like I wonder if you've come across people who feel like it's an attack on femininity or an attack on masculinity to sort of like push back against these norms. And have you come across that kind of reaction?
Not directly to me, but yes, I think, for example, when I read an article, I really don't read the comments anymore. I wrote an article for the New York Times recently, and I think it was called like What I Learned as a Parent of a Transgender Child. And so when you read the comments, there's some, and that article there was really nothing controversial in that article. The article was basically like, listen to your kids and, parent them with love instead of fear. I mean, it was very basic concepts. It didn't say anything about, medically transitioning or not, or, it was just a parenting thing. And when you read the comments, I mean, there were some really positive comments and some really terrible, comments. And I don't read the comments anymore. I mean, somebody else kind of drew my attention to the comments. And I said, yeah, I stopped reading comments on articles I post a long time ago. After, I wrote one for the Washington Post a couple of years ago, and some of the comments were just so horrible, and I've learned that when people can be anonymous, they say terrible things, but they would never say those things, to your face or directly to you. So I think there's a group of feminists in quote, who really say that are against trans women, and say that trans women aren't women, and that they are men trying to take away power from women, and it's just terrible. there's a term for them. I don't know if you've ever heard of it, but it's called a TERF, TERF, trans exclusionary radical feminist. They are not nice. I can tell you that, so there's a lot of, there's pushback, but there is, anytime your change is happening, there's pushback, and that's part of the process.
Yeah, as we're seeing in the whole whole world right now. So for you as a person, this obviously changed your life enormously. You you were off on a yoga retreat. Where were you? Like in Bali or something?
Yeah.
I'm so
I was in
jealous.
Thailand, yes.
While when you found news that Ava had cut herself and that precipitated all of this story. Now, since then, you've had like all these enormous changes in your life. What do you see as the way it's changed you personally?
It's changed me in a lot of ways personally. I think the biggest change for me was, so my book has an A story, which is Ava's transition, and then it has a B story, which is sort of my backstory and my evolution. And, I grew up as a Iranian American immigrant in the US, and I was one of the only brown kids in a white neighborhood, and I had been bullied in elementary school. And that bullying experience, it happened in just 1 year of my life. It was all of 5th grade. But there are some experiences that you carry with you to some degree for the rest of your life. And so that experience really led me to have a lot of insecurity throughout middle school and high school, and really feel like I was alone and on the outside. And I also, once I became an adult, I had some leftover insecurity from that, really, into my 40s. And I felt like I was always trying to prove myself as a person and prove my worth. And also that experience caused me to have a lot of fear for my child, because as when you've been an outsider, the last thing you want is for your child to be an outsider. So that caused me to have a lot of fear when she came out, that, what was her experience going to be like? And if mine had been like that, hers would be, 100 times worse. But basically, when watching her be so strong and so unapologetically sure of who she was forced me to re-examine all my insecurities from my past and get over it, and stop feeling like I need to continue to try to prove my worth. I think I've spent a lot of time trying to say that I'm just as American as the next person, and I've stopped, feeling like I need to prove that. And I think it's really been because I've, watched how, as a teenager, how she is so incredibly brave and strong, that I've sort of had to step up to the plate for myself as well.
That's beautiful. As I read that part about you in 5th grade, I could really, I was bullied in 4th grade, and for actually like the person that was a real jerk to me was in my class from kindergarten through senior high school. And anyway, I met him as an adult, and it was like it was really fascinating to kind of see this person that I'd had nightmares about, throughout my life. And so I love that this was part of the process for you, was like to let go of those insecurities. And you also talked about like slowing down It sounds like that might be part of that, and like not needing to prove yourself anymore, just like slowing down, doing a little bit less, like slowing down your lifestyle and really focusing on what really matters, and not just like kind of going. I imagine for a pediatrician with teens in LA, like there's a lot of going in general.
Yes, there definitely is. Yeah, I did a real slow down. I pared down my friendships to the ones that mattered the most and said no to a lot of things that I felt the need to say yes to prior to that. I also, it forced me to deal with my own body issues. I've had body image issues for 30 years, starting at the age of 12, really. And once my body started going through puberty and it's, filling out and becoming curvaceous. And I, spent a lifetime yo-yo dieting and trying every diet and reading every diet book like many other people do, even though I've never been overweight. It's always been like a 10, 15 pound issue that I've been battling. And when she came out and, we started having some conversations and she started estrogen and she was so just waiting for her hips to get curvier, I was like, why have I been fighting my hips for 30 years when it's these hips that define me as a woman and I want to be a woman? And I just realized how ridiculous my fight with my body had been. And really, like, after this conversation with her, I just stopped. I just stopped ever criticizing my body, cropping my thigh out of a picture, all of it, because I realized how ridiculous it was to be ungrateful for having a body that looks like a woman's curvaceous body.
Amen. That's great.
Yeah.
That's so beautiful. Paria, thank you so much. I really have been enjoying Found in Transition. For me, it's been really eye-opening, and I think it really made things personal for me, like to be able to read your story and for me to be able to put myself in your shoes so much. When I first started to sort of like encounter trans people in life, I was like, I felt deeply uncomfortable. And I think hearing your story makes me feel more comfortable. And so I appreciate that you've done that for me. So thank you. And I hope that everyone reads it. I think it's really powerful and what it just eye-opening to this, the changes and challenges that are happening for people out in the world. And I hope for anyone who has a trans kids or potentially trans kids, you'll read and know that you're not alone too. So thank you so much. Where can people find out more about you?
Well, thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate that you said that you had discomfort around trans people, because I think so many people do, and we're not honest about it. So I really appreciate you being vulnerable and sharing that, and that my book could change how you perceive that is really what writing this book is about. So that comment meant a lot to me. I am my website, pariahassouri.com. Sorry.
It's okay. You take your time. I can share. It's pariahassouri.com, and it's PariaHassouri, and the book is Found in Transition, and you can find it everywhere, I believe.
Yeah. And I'm also pretty active on Instagram at LA Paria, and I do check my DMs there. And thank you so much for sharing this with your audience. That really means a lot to me.
Thank you so much for listening. I mean, Paria's story is so powerful. I can't recommend the book enough. It's an easy read, and it's probably a good one to be making the rounds through the moms, through our book clubs and things like that. So if you have a book club, I really recommend Found in Transition for your book club. It's a really powerful book. And like I said in the conversation, like it really made it so that I felt like I understood in a way that was more personal to me, and that for me was really, really valuable. I recommend that you get it and read it as well. I hope that you're doing well. Just before we go, I want to remind you that we are opening spots in the Mindful Parenting teacher training. If you would like to teach mindful parenting in your local community, then you can go to mindfulparentingcourse.com/teach and learn more about it. We're putting more information on that mindfulparentingcourse.com/teach page every day. If you're interested, you can schedule a call with me. And if we determine it's the right fit for you, we'll send you a link to fill out the application. Very, very limited spots. And we're going to be starting in late December. In late December, you get to get started with your coursework in mindful parenting. So anyway, if this is something that appeals to you, I would love to work with you. This is really a light teaching this. I really enjoy it. Go to mindfulparentingcourse.com/teach. And I'm wishing you a great week. I hope you have pockets of peace and laughter, and that you can slow down and really see your children. And part of the mindfulness and part of what we teach in mindful parenting is letting go of labels. Letting go is trying to see our children with fresh eyes. So this week, the next time as you leave listening to this podcast, the next time you see your child, practice to let it be with fresh eyes, being curious about who they are right now and letting yourself be open to who they are right now. And I'll be practicing with you as well. I don't do it all perfectly, that's for sure. Of course, the teacher training is not about you doing it all perfectly, but it's about sharing the healing medicine that is mindful parenting. And for you, take that healing medicine for yourself too. Slow down, connect with friends, and I will be back in your ears next week. Thank you so much for listening. Namaste.